Of all the strange and wonderful Star Wars toys to come out of Kenner in the early 80s, perhaps one reigns above all as having more confusion, more behind the scenes lore, and more, well, misrepresentation than anyone is good old Snaggletooth. This is Scott Neitlich from Spector Creative, and we're going to dive deeply into Snaggletooth and try to figure this all out. I mean, the biggest thing people know about Snaggletooth in pop culture is that he started off as a blue character, or a character in a blue suit, and eventually became a character in a red suit, shrunk down to about 3/4 of the size. And while this blue figure was never released on a single card, like the other 91 US figures, or, well, 92, 93 if you want to count the droid variants, and then there's Yak, oh, that's a whole other video, see here. But this figure was released officially. It was part of the Sears exclusive Cantina Adventure set, which was advertised in the long lost and beloved Sears catalog, which was like the original way we all looked and wanted toys. So this figure was available in both a 2-pack that you can see on the left there and as part of the Cantina Adventure set, which came with 4 alien figures. Now, eventually, when Snaggletooth was retooled as the smaller red version, this was replaced in the 2-pack, but you can see the picture of the blue version with the Cantina Adventure set was still in the same image, so confusing. So yes, you could get this figure either as a 2-pack in a small white box that also came with Greedo, and then of course there was a second 2-pack that also had Walrus Man and Hammerhead in it, so you could build up your Cantina aliens that way, or go for broke and get the entire set in the Cantina Adventure set, which was basically a cardboard diorama with some foot pegs that popped up, so you could display your figures. But hey, it was a great way to get an army of aliens all at once, and they came packed out at the bottom with their weapons appropriately, and you could have a lot of fun. Plus there was a cardboard sand trooper in the background, which was one of the only representations of a sand trooper in the vintage line. All right, so back to Snaggletooth. There's a lot of confusion over this character, and there's been a lot of sculpts. It obviously all started with this original one after the resculpt from the tall blue one, once Lucasfilm said, yeah, Snaggletooth is short and wears red. He's not tall in blue. And, well, there was obviously a lot of creative license taken with those early Cantina figures. There wasn't much reference material to go off of. You can see the character that became sort of Snaggletooth here on early concept art, where they were even sketching out how the actors would be inside the puppets. In the original Kenner line, a lot of the aliens had funny names like Hammerhead and Snaggletooth. They would eventually get proper Star Wars names in things like the Decipher card game and the West End's Gamer Guide that were in Kraken's Guide to Characters. So Hammerhead became Momo Nadone, and all of his further figures in the modern line weren't known as Hammerhead, but rather Momo Nadone. Similarly, the character that started off as Snaggletooth here on his colorful card with yellow pillbox would get a modern name, and the very first modern Snaggletooth we got was this one, Tequil, as part of a Cantina Aliens 3-pack. So it was absolutely on point and on brand to start naming all of the aliens, now that the modern line had reference material for all of them, and obviously there was not guesswork on design choices and reference material from the movie, because the movie was now, 20 years old, or 15 years old, if you will. So, characters that were once known as Devilman became Labria, and Snaggletooth was Tequil, and the gas mask alien with 4 arms was Nebron Leeds. Much cooler sounding names. Well, I guess maybe if you're a kid, Walrus Man and Hammerhead sound pretty cool. But here's where the confusion really begins. The next Snaggletooth-y character, as in like Snaggletooth-theme, like many Snaggletooth characters, was this one in Power of the Jedi, which was called Zutton, and under his name was Snaggletooth. So does that mean Snaggletooth is Zutton, or is Snaggletooth Tequil? Well, if you look at the original Snaggletooth figure, clearly that image there is the same character that Zutton is based on. Zutton looks exactly like the card art that was used on Snaggletooth. So is it safe to say that this was an upgrade of Snaggletooth and Tequil is some other character. I mean, the belt buckles are even exactly the same. So, okay, so this is the modern update of the vintage Snaggletooth character, and Tequil is someone else. And then, of course, there is the blue version that was released in a 3-pack, but this was just taking the new Zutton head and putting it on a kit-bashed body, and, this was just done for funsies, as reference to the old blue Snaggletooth figure. It wasn't meant to be legitimate or in canon, it was just fun because, we remembered the blue version. So the next time we would get a Snaggletooth figure was in an action figure set that was available at Target, which was the villain set and included a Sand People, proper term, I guess, Boba Fett, and Snaggletooth, an all-new sculpt. This was a direct update of one of the vintage special action figure sets, the villain set, which included Sand People, Boba Fett, and Snaggletooth. So it was cool to have a direct update, and Snaggletooth got an all-new premiere sculpt in this set. Fett and the Tusken Raider were carry forward. Eventually, this same sculpt would be released in the vintage series with the name Zutton. So wait a minute, hold on. This figure and the card art do not at all match the previously released Zutton figure. Note the belt, note the shirt. They don't look anything alike. I mean, I guess they could be considered the same species, but the hair is different, the outfit is different. One is wearing sort of a space spandexy suit. The other one is wearing kind of like what Luke wears on Tatooine. I guess kind of like a karate gi type outfit that ties at the waist. All right, so we need to get to the bottom of this Snaggletooth Zutton Tequil mystery. And as much as I would love to just force feed myself Pez, that's not necessarily the way we're going to get to the bottom of that. So let's do a little bit of movie and toy history. So it all starts at the beginning a long time ago in a toy factory close by, where the original concept art for Snaggletooth is created by a Kenner designer. And as it notes on the actual design sheet, this figure was a 3 3/4, 3.75 inches, and it was created in January of 1978, after the movie came out. And this concept art by Kenner became this figure, the one that was included with the Cantina Adventure set or the Snaggletooth plus Greedo 2-pack. So there you go. We know where this figure came from. It came from Kenner's art. Now, there is an interesting note about that belt buckle that you see him wearing. So Stephen Hodges, who was the designer, well, he took the belt buckle right off of his business card. It's a little hard to see looking at the front of the card, but if we flip the card upside down and look at the back, because luckily his card was embossed, so the embossment kind of goes through onto the back, then we can clearly see that Snaggletooth's belt buckle is right there on his business card. It was his design symbol, and he decided as a way to sign his name on the figure was to put it on his belt buckle. Hey, no reason not to. Pretty cool. So that is the origin of his belt buckle, and the blue suit just became blue because they had black and white images, and they only had images of him from the neck up. All right, so furthermore, when we look at the Cantina and we think of it in our mind, this is kind of what we think of, right? All these aliens together in a giant group. You can even see, is that Snaggletooth above the Duros there? And fans have spent many years and many freeze frames finding out the name of every single character, every human, every alien. But the thing is, there's two completely different sets of aliens that populate the Cantina. This first set here were the aliens that were made with rubber masks that were on the set of Elstree Studios when the movie was filmed. They're the characters you see in all of the wide shots of the Cantina, such as the first panning shot, which has a lot of humans in it and a few aliens. So this came from all of the characters that were physically there in London. These are the same characters you then see walking around Mos Eisley in various quick shots and different passes as the heroes are walking to Docking Bay 94. Now, George Lucas famously did not like these designs. He felt they were not strong enough, and he was very, very angry. Some of them were able to change on the spot, such as Greedo got a quick update to make him more Star Warsian, I guess, and less Flash Gordon. But for most of the redesigns, a new artist, Rob Cobb, had to be, Ron Cobb, had to be brought in.
Get in the damn ship! Everything's on a cob! The whole planet's on a cob! Go! Go! Go!
So Ron comes along and designs a whole bunch of new aliens to populate George's Cantina, which are going to be done in the pickup shots that are done in the US, not on Elstree Studios on set that day. And that's where you really get most of the colorful designs and the aliens that we remember. Most of these were just done with puppets, or with partial body, if you will, like just a head, because the shot was going to be quick and they didn't need an entire alien. Some of them were just propped up, others people dressed were actors in the full costume, but many of them were just heads on sticks, because they didn't need to create an entire body with legs, since the shot would only last for a few moments, as they tried to do insert shots that would be done through pickups to populate the cantina and make it look more diverse and more spacey. So yeah, this guy is just a head on a stick, literally, that pops up. He's the first alien we see. All right, so looking at the ones that were actually on set, we can clearly see there are two Snaggletooth species aliens, and they are named later on by Lucasfilm as Tequil and Zutton. Okay, great. Just like the figures we saw before, we had a Zutton and we had a Tequil. Those are the two aliens from the cantina. One has more of a hump, one has a little bit more hair. Neither of them are this blue guy, but that doesn't matter. That this is just a figure that had to get remade after it was rejected and turned into this red guy with small legs and furry boots. Okay, so that leaves this guy then. Who the heck is this character? This is the one that even appears on the card art, and he's definitely not here among the aliens that were on set that day, and he was not among the aliens that Ron Cobb redesigned. Well, the answer is the Star Wars Holiday Special. While it has some great moments like the Boba Fett animation and some really weird moments like 15 minutes of Wookiee dialogue with no subtitles, one of the cooler segments is a revisit to the cantina, and we get to see a lot more close-ups of characters, including all of the Ron Cobb design masks with a K, such as also we get to see Ponda Baba's flippery fins, which is what the costume actually had, as opposed to the later inset shot where he has a furry hand. That's why the action figure has replaceable hands. All right, so we can see our lovable character there from the original card art all the way on the left. So this was a character created for the holiday special. And his name is Zuthmore. So it's not Zutton, and it's not Tequil, and it's not Snaggletooth. It's Zuthmore, which is actually, it's a she. This is a female of Snaggletooth species. So going back to the original red figure that had the belt buckle based on the designer's logo on his business card, well, the character for the holiday special was created based on the red action figure, because you can see there the belt buckle was added to make it look like the character that Kenner was now developing. You could say this was one of the first true partnerships between Lucasfilm and Kenner, trying to have some kind of continuity, I suppose. So the belt buckle that started on a business card, then went to a figure, is now officially on the character in the Star Wars Holiday Special. So the confusion of this character here, this character called Zutton in Power of the Jedi should have been called Zuthmore. If it had been called Zuthmore and not even Snaggletooth, it probably would have not led to so much confusion. So as a recap, we have Tequil, one of the two Snaggletooth type, I can think Snivians are the actual species, and then you have Zutton, the other Snivian, who was released first as a Target 3-pack and then in the Vintage series. You can see them both in Mos Eisley, in behind-the-scenes footage, and they're both there in the cantina. You can see Tequil there behind the character called Croc and the character called Gas Mask. At least that was their names on set. Obviously, they have future names. And then, of course, there's this guy who cut off his head and stole his outfit and then wore it around for a day. But yes, you can see here's the actor playing Tequil, taking a rest after a hard day drinking. And then Zutton, the other Slivian character, the species, I know I'm butchering it here. I'm going to lose my Star Wars fan club card. So he can be seen here next to Han when the Sand Troopers are coming in looking for Luke and Obi-Wan. in one of those blink and you miss it moments. But they're both there. This guy, Zutmore, or girl rather, is not in the cantina in Star Wars A New Hope. She appeared in the holiday special, and the outfit was created based on the version that Kenner did, the second version, so that there could be some kind of tie-in. The blue one obviously never appeared in anything. That was just a mistake, which was quickly corrected. But, it's fun when we get figures of this, much like Gentle Giant did a double-sized 12-inch figure in their Giants, or their Jumbo line. And again, this is just for funsies. And it's cool because, there's so much mythology around this figure. All right, so finally, wrapping it all up, back to Snaggletooth, the original figure. So, looking at his card, his original Kenner card, one of the really confusing things is that is clearly a picture of Zutmore from the holiday special. It's the only figure in the Kenner line that had card art from the holiday special. Now, it could be chalked up that, much like Ponda Baba became Walrus Man in the Kenner line, and does not look screen accurate to what would be Ponda Baba and later toy releases that would be much, much more accurate, like the Vintage Collection one here, with the swappable hands, with the flipper or the furry hands. So, who is Snaggletooth at the end of the day? Well, it kind of falls into the whole hammerhead and, Walrus Man category. He's not quite any character. He's not in reference. There's no character like this that has furry feet. They all wear boots. And the only one that's sort of close is Zutmore from the holiday special, which wound up on his card art. Crazy, right? Well, if you like this video and want to see more like it, please do subscribe because it tells YouTube to share this with other people. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys right here on Spector Creative with the next one.